Hey, Kermit.
Hey Timmy, how are you?
Is it Friday? I think it's
Almost.
Friday, right? Every day's Friday.
Every day is a Friday.
It's good to see everybody and welcome. I think we've got some good information to pass on to you today, and thanks for joining SSDA. I wanted to start right out of the gate with my busy superintendent from Buttonwillow and our current president. He owns the gavel out of Buttonwillow. Now, Buttonwillow is that town you go by and you see the Buttonwillow Raceway before you hit the Grapevine. So please welcome Stuart Packard. He's going to say a few words. And Stu, thanks for dealing with me as the board president.
Well, thanks, Tim, and greetings from Buttonwillow, California, the home of the cheapest gas between LA and San Francisco, and a great barbecue place, which food is always important to me. So since I know that I'm talking to people up around Siskiyou, Yak's is like one of my favorite places in the world to eat. You have to have the bacon overload burger, and you have to have the bourbon cinnamon roll. So that's obviously the route
I'm going there right now.
So actually, I love that part of the state just because I'm in the middle of almond orchards and all that in Central California, and to be honest, nobody wants to take credit for the Bakersfield area, but it's been a great place to raise kids. And when I retire, I'm out of here. That's all there is to it. But I do want to let you know that from a perspective of where we're going with SSDA, we really have got to be bringing together the whole state right now in terms of where we're going and working the whole system to recognize that the small school districts are crucial to where we're going in this state. And we continue to make students our main priority with what's happening. But by doing this, we're also moving outward a little bit. We're working with the National Rural Education Association a little bit more closely. Tim and I have a meeting with them on Wednesday. We do need to make rural schools a priority and not an afterthought. We need to be focused on our kids and our communities that we're serving. We need to have a more national presence with what we're doing. You can see some of that happening with what we're doing with West Ed, and we've developed a relationship with Arizona, Utah, and Nevada recently. We've got to connect our organization, and we have to continue that relationship building so that we can draw on the strengths of one another across this state, as well as reaching out to other states as well, as we really make small schools, rural schools a priority. And that's really my goal over the next 2 years, even though my 2 years as president probably will not be seen at very many conferences or anything, but I will get a chance to be on some of these and share with where our vision is going over the next few years. So Tim, other than that, I welcome you to the NorCal Siskiyou meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do some introductions. Just a couple of things I want to say more about Stuart. If you guys want to watch a school, how it's evolved over during his leadership, it's one of the top scoring academic schools now in San Bernardino. Is at the bottom rung when he took over. And he's a big fan of his roadie, the mascot, and then he brought in Gumby this year to bring flexibility. So he brings Gumby and these guys to COVID testing, and he's a hoot on Twitter if you want to follow him, but he truly is passionate about SSDA and been on the board as long as I've been around. And again, I like him having the gavel because he's got some bold goals for us nationally to work with Alan Pratt and the rest of the folks nationwide. So thanks so much, Stuart. I'm going to try to do introductions, which is going to be hard, but I think it'd be good for our associates and Barrett and Christina and everybody else. So I'm just going to call out names. If you can tell us where you're from, and believe me, I might mess this up, so bear with me if I forget you. Let's start with
Hey, Tim, really quickly, I'm gonna get to see some faces here, see some introductions. There's some people that I do recognize, some names and some faces as well, but I'm gonna hang on, and then I'm gonna bail out of here because I have to start working on a preschool thing here.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it. Let's start with Kelly Bear, and on deck is Ginger Lee. Kelly, you got to unmute. All right.
Hi, I'm Kelly Bear. I'm with Hornbrook Elementary School, last district right on I-5 before you hit Oregon.
Still cleaning up Josh Pete's mess. I'm sorry about that.
Absolutely, you are correct.
Poor guy. He's been evacuated like 12 times the last 3 years. Poor guy. Ginger Lee.
Hi, Ginger Lee Charles, Principal Superintendent, Grenada Elementary School. And that's about it.
Great. Welcome. Hi, Nancy.
Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy. Kermit's on
Nancy
deck.
Connor, hi.
Yeah, hi, Nancy.
It's been a while since I've seen you, but here representing Keenan. Most of you know we're a brokerage consulting firm that specializes in public agencies, property casualty, employee benefits, and financial services solutions. So I'm happy to be here. Great to see some faces I haven't seen in a while, and feel very much for all of what you guys are going through right now. I know it's a struggle for me, just as a consultant to some of you. Just this isolation, it's tough.
Ooh, I like hearing a school bell. Hey, Kermit.
Hey, Tim. Kermit Walters, the county superintendent in Siskiyou County.
Great. I got Montague, Michael on deck. Montague. They went out to get the bell. Okay, Michael, you're up.
Morning, Tim. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you, Kermit. It's been way too long. I'm sure I know many more of you. I see a lot of familiar faces out of there. We've worked extensively with SSDA and Smalls over the years, but my name is Michael Riemenschneider. My company is called eShore Consulting. We are municipal advisors or bond guys. Really, most importantly, we are clients' fiduciaries in these matters, facility finance matters, and we're proud to offer responsible advice, which is particularly important right now in these crazy times. But despite everything that's going on, super excited to be here. Again, great to see so many familiar faces, and kudos to Tim and Corey for continuing to make these things happen.
Great. Hey, Sarah Applegate, you're up. Oh, she went. Where'd she go? Okay, well, hey, Greg Curry, go with you.
Sarah's still there.
Where is she? I lost her.
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh, hey, Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, Sarah Applegate, CBO, Siskiyou Union High School District.
Awesome. How about Craig Clifford and then Mike Matheson?
Hi, this is Craig. I'm with Multiple Measures, and we have reimagined assessment reporting. We manage and deliver all your assessment results. We deliver visual, actionable data to each teacher and administrator, and we highlight incremental growth and regression over time for students, groups, and subgroups. I know we've got well, one more point. No training is necessary, and I dare you to ask me how we do that. And nice to see a whole lot of people that we're working with in Siskiyou County, Kermit and all your gang and the other schools that we're working with. Would be pleased to answer questions and help you guys out and get clear and just keep moving forward. We want to help you guys, especially right now.
Good job, Craig. Nice seeing you. Hey, Mike Freeman. Where'd Mike Masson go? This is all spinning on me.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Mathis,
Hey, Mike.
Superintendent, Siskiyou Union High School District and Principal of Wheat High School.
Great. Hey, Mr. Freeman, you're up.
All right, Mike Freeman, Instructional Services Executive Director, Shasta County.
Great. Hey, Scott Coffey, you're up, and Alan Carver on deck.
Well, good morning, everyone. Scott Coffey with NWEA. We provide assessments to help identify skill gaps and then, of course, identify information to help develop instruction. So good morning and thank you.
Morning. Mr. Carver with Kelsey on deck.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alan Carver. I have the pleasure of serving as Kermit Walters Assistant County Superintendent, and great to see you all this morning.
I'm doing the sign of the cross for you. Kelsey, you're up with Ray Keller on deck.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kelsey. I'm here representing Equitable Advisors today, formerly known as AXA Advisors. We're really excited. This is our first year partnering with the Small School District Association, and our goal is to just bring education to all of the district teachers and staff about their retirement benefit.
Great. Ray Keller on deck with Miss Keeler up next. Oh, you're muted.
You're
Good
muted,
morning.
Ray.
Susan Keeler from Dunsmore Elementary.
Thanks,
There,
Susan. Okay,
We'll
Ray, back
try it
to you.
again. We'll try it
Yeah.
again. Ray Keller, Dunsmore High School Superintendent Principal.
Still cleaning up foreman's masses? Sorry about that.
We won't talk about those things.
Post-traumatic stress.
It's been a long time. That was no issue.
Okay, good. Hey, Miss Janie Thomas with Susan. Christina, you're up next.
Morning, everybody. Jamie Tom. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Jamie's up
Jamie, I
first.
think I stepped all over you. I can't even follow directions. Jamie, apologies. No worries. I'm Jamie Thomas. I'm superintendent principal at Delphic Elementary School District and Gazelle Elementary School District.
Awesome. Nice to meet you. See you again. Christina up and Nicole on deck. Now, Nicole with a K, not a CH.
Very important. Morning, everybody. Christina Marcellus with Capital Advisors, lucky enough to represent SSDA here in Sacramento.
Great. Nicole with other Nicole on deck.
Good morning, Nicole with no E too. Lake Elementary Superintendent Principal in Glenn County. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey, so I'm the other Nicole. It looks like I am not the only one with parents with unique spellings. I'm with a company called ClassLink. What we do is we provide seamless and secure access to all the digital resources through single sign-on, user account provisioning, rostering, and then usage analytics into everything you guys are using. So thank you so much for letting us join today.
Great. Nice to see you again. Kim, you're up with Miss Butler on deck. Kim, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, I just hit the mute. I had to do it. I'm not very fast. Hi, this is Kim Vardenega, Dunsmere Joint Union High School District, Administrative Assistant and CBO.
Great. See, Miss Butler, you're up with Mr. Curry on deck.
Hi everyone, Jennifer Butler with SiteLogic. We're an energy services company that addresses your deferred maintenance and modernization items with energy savings, and a true aficionado of SSDA, having grown up and went to school in a very small school district myself. Much love.
Great. Greg's up. Sabrina on deck.
Hi everybody. I feel like I'm in a game of hot potato and Hollywood Squares. That would be dating myself. We're technology and education, and we support schools with classroom technology infrastructure, AV equipment, software, and infrastructure. Anything really you need to do with technology.
Great. Sabrina, you're up with Victor on deck and Miss Gladney in the hole for you baseball fans.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Silva. I'm the superintendent principal of Big Springs Elementary School.
Nice to see you. Victor.
Good morning, everybody. Victor Hopper, Superintendent of Anderson Union High School District.
Wow, good to see you. So I got Miss Gladney up with my new BFF, Derek Cooper, on deck, and Heidi after that. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Gladney. I'm the Director of K-12 Education for National University. We are a leader in online education. We've been partnered with the SSDA for a number of years. We provide a 15% tuition reduction scholarship for all SSDA employees. So thank you for having us on here. We offer a number of credential programs, bachelor's, master's, and associate's programs.
Great. All right. Derek.
Hello, can you guys see me?
No.
Because I can't.
You never look so good.
Isn't that great? I can't. It says like I'm videoing, but I can't see myself. Come back to me. I'll play around with it.
Okay, Sabrina up with Lillian on deck.
Why isn't?
Oh, I forgot Heidi. Go ahead, Sabrina.
I already went, but I'm Sabrina Silva from Big Springs Elementary School. Superintendent principal.
I'm just going down my little list here. So Heidi, nice to see you, Heidi.
Hi, Heidi Garrick, Superintendent Principal, Butte Valley Unified School District.
Great. Lillian.
Hi, I'm Lillian Eastlick. I'm CBO with Scott Valley Unified School District.
Great. I see Barry Barnhart's on here. Hey, Barry.
Sorry for the delay, everybody. Barry Barnhart, Superintendent Principal, Mount Shasta Union School District. Beautiful day.
I bet. I'm jealous. See Montague's back on. How about Montague?
Hey, good morning. Good to see everybody. Of course, it's the day that our students are doing things that they ought not to be doing this morning. But I'm glad to be here.
Good to see you. Let's see, Corey Duggan, Corey Williams. How about Corey Williams? And I got Cooper on deck. Hey, Corey.
Good morning. Good to be here. And I forgot the question. I'm sorry. I'm still not quite dialed in here yet. So,
who are you? What's your name?
Oh, sorry. Corey Williams, Superintendent Principal, Princeton Joint Unified. And I didn't think you'd call me because I was muted, but here I am. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Hey, Corey. Good seeing you. Who did I forget? Because names are popping up. How about Miss Dawes? I see.
Hey, I'm Rhonda Dawes. I'm the assistant principal at the high school.
Good seeing you. All right. Did I miss anybody? Probably. Joanne, anybody? Okay. Well, listen, everyone. If I missed you, feel free to throw your name out there on the chat. I'm going to get started with about a 10-minute whirlwind for you. So I'm going to share my screen. Hope you guys can see that. Can you see that? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Hey, listen, I wanted to focus on, trying to do a David Letterman top 10 things that we're working on. And Corey and I think have done a great job in our first year. And I want to share with you kind of the top 10 issues going on right now that we're working on to help you guys out. And really looking forward to listening to some of your comments throughout the day this morning to help us prepare for the next quarter. I'm finding out as an executive director, it's I actually have to ask the board to do things. As a county soup, you just do whatever you want. And I miss those days somewhat, but my board has been very, very helpful. I've got a super strong board. And we met last night, went over issues and talked about some up and coming things that we're working on. So really, COVID's kind of been the hottest topic. It's been really interesting, you guys. I've not been in the inner circles with CTA and CSA at that level. In the governor's office, it's a complete, it was a labor MOU nightmare with that first round, and it still continues. And I'll get back to CTA a little later. We are also the governor, and I'll let Barrett and those guys talk a little bit more about this, but they are looking to test 150 to 180,000 staff per day in California. And we are on a committee. We're going to be putting forth 3 names to be on this committee to talk about the distribution and how it all works. But they are looking at ways to provide free testing for staff. There's a lot of unknowns in that. And again, the union is pushing back. And I think the big thing for me is just kind of anticipating what is going to be next. We do get surprised as close as we are and Capital Advisors is to the pulse. We do get surprised once in a while with this new administration with color-coded things and other things. And we're frustrated because we talk to them a lot, but we still do have to take some surprise hits because they like to, in my opinion, make their decisions through labor first and then talk to us. And we're trying to flip that paradigm as best we can. We're very proud of what we're doing to support teachers this year. Corey's probably worked with over 700 teachers throughout the state with our PD that we've got going on. And we're really excited, you guys, about the computer science grant for those of you that are involved. I think I forgot to put Shasta on there too. That's a 6-year grant that we've got. So we'll be hanging around with you guys for a while, implementing computer science, PD, and others for teachers. And we just hosted some more other things for a video series on technology. You'll be seeing that in my blast out. And then we're meeting with CCE. Armelino's been very gracious to us, and he wants to know what we can do to help provide more PD out there for your schools and your staff. So if you have ideas, throw them on the chat and Corey will take notes. But we're really excited about working with Armelino. If you guys can believe it, Armelino's on the 14th floor on one building in the corner. I'm right across this alley from him on the 14th floor. So two knuckleheads have corner offices in downtown Sac is quite interesting from Region 2, and really kudos to all of Region 2. I think what we learned as a group helped us. I think the other big thing is now that most of you guys have done some face-to-face hybrid and also distance learning, our board yesterday went through what they're doing, and we're going to be putting together more resources now about lessons learned, what's working, what's not. For instance, yesterday, our Placerville superintendent, Eric Bonnickson, he has 5 different letters to prepare for each scenario when COVID hit his campus. So he had a 7th grader come down with it yesterday, and he's fully prepared, and he shared those with us. Those are the type of things that we need to get out to you so you're prepared to deal with cases that come up and changes. I think one thing we agreed to as a board overall is no matter what you do, someone's going to be angry. It's the way the world is right now, and all you can do is your best to provide best things for kids. I am providing probably 4 to 5 times a week therapy to superintendents who are really hitting the wall, and it's only early October. It does feel more like late May, as you guys know, and it's a long grind ahead of us. Did not like seeing some of the predictions of COVID cases in December nationally, where they're projecting about 3,000 deaths a day. So I'm sure we'll be helping you with more therapy and our Wednesday talks, or anytime you guys need to text or email me, please do. We're here to help. I say the greatest accomplishment, and we kind of took advantage of the COVID issue, but Capital Advisors got us to the table with the governor's office, AXA, CSESA, CASBO. That's been great. We meet just about every Thursday night and go over issues. We're working on the audit guideline right now for that will be important for your distance learning. SSDA, I think, finally has a voice with everyone. And for instance, I just talked yesterday, Barrett hosted a meeting with me with ETS on what they're looking at for the fall state testing. They have 3 different models they're looking at: paper, pencil, face-to-face, and distance learning, with all the nuances around that. I don't know how we're going to do state testing. Maybe a change in DC could change that. I'm not sure. But it is, the feds are mandating it. And so we will be working over the next 2 months to prepare for a January PD to help you with state testing this year. Clearly, labor's king, you guys. I mean, I don't know how to say this any stronger, but labor is driving so much. It's so frustrating. I saw the frustration in Kevin Gordon's face last night during our board meeting. But they truly are driving a lot of these issues. And I think the governor and state superintendent are in a bind because they're starting to realize at times they can be very difficult, if not always difficult, to deal with. And as Springsteen says, they're never going to be satisfied till they get everything. So that's the fact of the matter is labor is king in Sacramento. One of the things we've committed to, and we'll be working with like East Shore and other organizations, is really getting our arms around the January 10th budget, which I think will have a negative. If we looked at what happened last year, we were bailed out. I don't know if that's going to be that's not going to be there this year with the way our economy is and tax receipts. So again, I think Barrett will touch on more, but we're going to start rolling out some webinars over the next within the next month to get you prepared going before January 10th. I think at the table, if I were you, I'd start bringing up, hey, this is all one-time money stuff. And the fact is, statewide, I would say 8 out of 12 districts, there's 1,200, about 800 are in declining enrollment or stable, and 400 have small growth. With the fires, we're seeing a vast exodus of people out of California. So, this all leads to a perfect storm. And as George Washington says, if you can prepare for that as best you can. I think we got blindsided last year in January. We knew it would be kind of bad. We didn't see a 10 or 12% cut in May revise due to the COVID. So I see that being a big part of what we're doing to help you. I'm doing my best to help out with fires. Derek's been really great to work with up in Happy Valley, and I know Mike, you guys are dealing with all kinds of stuff. Basically, CDE waits for phone calls and communicates, I think, better with the county offices and directly with districts, but definitely some frustrations from district soup. So I'm going to start hosting with AXA some Tuesday, Thursday calls for the next, 4 to 6 weeks, just so district soups have an opportunity to call into. Jack O'Connell is going to join us for those calls, and we'll definitely be working on some legislation to ensure those districts that have lost some ADA will be protected for a couple of years. That's our main goal. Then helping people get back on their feet. We have a lot of displaced districts, and again, Butte County had the fire take out Berry Creek Pioneer School, which was a sad day for Butte County. Our hottest issue probably going on right now is the capped ADA. And again, Barrett and Christina can cover this, but we have a lot of small districts that have had a lot of movement from suburban to rural. I hear you guys are getting a bunch of Bay Area liberals up there. It's good for Kermit to get some Bay Area folks. The fact of the matter is it's really insane that they put together a cap. They put a cap on ADA. We have a little district called Canyon over in the East Bay, and she's got 3 more ADA. And she goes, hey, I got 82 students. 3 ADA is a lot of bake sales. So that's a big blow to a small district. And we're going to be collectively working with legislators and finance to address this. We're not done, but if we have to, we'll litigate. I'm very adamant about that. And we cannot let the state dictate like this. It's really to be serving students and not getting paid for that is ridiculous. I've been conducting some board trainings already, especially for boards that have already, there's no election facing them. Mostly, you guys, the board trainings go over the basic stuff with Brown Act and all that, but truly the superintendents and boards are struggling with the intensity of what's going on right now. There's I've gone into a couple districts to help them with team building, staying to the course, not flip-flopping, et cetera, et cetera. We're here to come, after your elections, Kermit's up to you guys. We'd be more than willing to come up and do training for your entire county. That's a lot of people. Or if you want us to do it via remotely, we're here to help you guys on that. And for members, we don't charge much at all. Basically, we just charge my travel, my food, and bar bill. So 2 out of the 3.
That's what I was afraid of. The last one, bar bill piece of it.
Hey, the gold room's got 2 for 1. No big deal. Also, we're helping with some superintendent searches, so keep us in mind if you're looking at that too. So, one of my things, we can't generate a lot of new money, but working on a lot of webinars that help you focus on saving time, right? So our webinars, you'll see, take districts that are using our associates products and saying, here's how it's saving me some time or money. I love the fact that we ran a 4-state consortium conference, and we're looking to do this within our own conference that are only 5-minute presentations. I think we waste way too much time on long 1-hour presentations, and people really gave us great feedback. We do 5-minute, tell us what the heck you got to share as a superintendent or leader, and you get 5 minutes to do it. The great news about that, I always say, is if the presentation's bad, you go to the bathroom, come back, and there's a next presenter on. So it saves a lot of time and money. We also do some 20-minute videos you'll see in our webinars, because we think that's our attention span as people are looking at videos or maybe going for a walk and listening to them. Let's see. Screen. A new thing we got going on, I've been shooting out some leadership videos since, COVID started out and trying to help you guys with your own leadership. But we have been asked by Madera to do the new CSLA leadership series. Now, I know I've been in contact with Chico State because they have your CSLA, but we more than welcome you to join if you want to talk to some people throughout the state. We have the Mono to Monterey area, and ours is strictly for superintendent, principal, or small districts. And then we also are doing one for lead teachers or future administrators. These are the old CSLA ones. I'm sure Kermit, I'm sure you went to one as well, you know, and it's really more about networking, reflecting on your leadership and dealing with issues. Corey will send you guys all, she sent it before, but we more than welcome you to join our world. And we're also looking for more in our teacher cohort. I got great superintendents teaching these from Sundale. I got 4 really good teachers that are all from the field working currently. So I think you guys will really get a kick out of that. It's a good way to connect with other people throughout the state. And then my last bonus, number 11, I'm working on Kermit's Mardi Gras retirement. So I might bring back, you know, the old Tom Powers float honoring him at the parade. We've got a party at Lake Island, the Siskiyou Lake Island, whatever that thing's called. And definitely a gold room dance party would be in order. So Kermit, I'm working on that. Remember, I'm not good at planning, so I'll have to involve Corey. But it's a pleasure. You guys, we love kicking off our series with you guys because you're so engaging, and you guys have a soft spot for me to help you out down here in Sacramento. So that's basically what we're doing. Again, use our chat to talk to us, ask questions throughout. I just want to say we're very thankful for your membership and working with all of you. It is still shocking to me how everything, you fight as hard as you can, but definitely labor and the big 6 districts have a lot of power, and we're doing our best to fight against them, but definitely the big 6 and CTA and CSEA unfortunately right now have the upper hand. So we'll keep biting them at the ankles. So that's it for me. Thanks so much for everything. I'm gonna hand it back over to Corey. Corey, who's our next presenter? I should probably know that. Is it Capital Advisors?
It sure is. So we've got Christina and Barrett from Capital Advisors here are going to present for you guys today. Christina and Barrett, I know you guys have a PowerPoint. You are able to share your slides.
Great. Christina, do you mind driving on the PowerPoint?
Yeah, let me see if
We'll figure this out, but we'll do introductions. Hi, everybody. Barrett Snyder with Capital Advisors and my colleague, Christina Marcellus.
Hey Barrett, hold on a second. She went to UCLA. Hitting that forward button might be too hard for her.
Now, you say that jokingly, Tim, but this is a high stress environment. Can you guys see?
Yeah, we can see your entire desktop. So if you just maybe maximize it and go to slideshow mode, we'll be able to. Yeah, just hit presentation on that. There you go. Cool. Okay, so we are going to, after we get through all the Zoom logistics, we're going to talk to you guys about what's going on in Sacramento. We're at Capital Advisors. We represent SSDA and work with Tim here in Sacramento and Corey on representing you in terms of state budget, policy. So I want to give you a kind of a what's going on right now update, just to sort of set the table. The legislature shut down in September. So they have, acted. The governor has until, he had until the end of the month to sign bills. So, he's acted on everything. And now we're in this interesting spot where the legislature shut down and we're waiting for this election to happen. And we're between budgets. So we're kind of in an in-between spot right now. So it's an important time to reflect on kind of what's been happening, what might happen in this election, and where we might be going come January when everything starts up again. The legislature comes back. We potentially have a change in administration at the federal level. No gubernatorial election here in California right now. So we're gonna walk through all of that and then at the end here we want to get feedback from you guys. So please feel free to share or ask questions. Let's start with budget though. So just, when COVID hit, a little bit of a story to tell here. When COVID hit, there was a lot of uncertainty in Sacramento around what the impact was going to be to the economy, to the state's finances, what that would mean for school funding, Proposition 98 and everything else. And so between March and May, there was a lot of digging in to try and figure that out. And in the May revision, the governor's changes to his January budget, we saw a proposal to cut schools by essentially 10%, right? This was we're going to cut LCFF funding by 10%. It was sort of an across the board reduction. Then the Budget Act, about 30 days later, the legislature and the governor decided, we're not going to do a 10% cut. What we're going to do is essentially enact what we did during the last recession, which are implementing extensive deferrals, inter-year deferrals to absorb the state's Prop 98 requirements. And so what we see is just unprecedented levels of deferrals. To give you an idea, in the Great Recession, we got up to about 10 and some change $billion in state deferrals, and we're there and then some under the current budget. We're surpassing that, and so it's a lot to do in sort of cash management, which you guys are all dealing with. And then they waived a bunch of requirements around. And Tim's working with us on this right now. They just said we're going to do this hold harmless. We're going to pay everybody what they got in 2019-20, but then said. But we're still going to require some things, and you actually can come down from your hold harmless if attendance doesn't work, right? And then if you've got more kids coming in, which is in a lot of places this is happening. This is happening in school districts. It's happening in charter schools. We're seeing enrollment, a lot of migration as a result of the pandemic. And what the hold harmless doesn't do is do a very good job of paying for the kids that move. And so we are working to try and get that resolved. It's affecting small and rural districts. It's affecting a lot of districts around the state, and that is something we're going to seize upon to create some coalitions to try and get them to undo that in some way as we go forward. Then we've got wildfire and emergency impacts. Tim's been doing a lot of work on that and has firsthand experience, and we're not done yet. I don't think. We're still not through fire season, and we've I'm from Sonoma County, where there were a bunch, and there still are threats there. And so, what the impacts of that are going to be? Our colleague Jerry Shelton put out something about an update about J13s for folks that have impacts related to fires. There's a J13 process to go through. Just want to make sure folks are aware of that. And then, state revenues are fairly unpredictable right now, but we're actually trending ahead of the assumptions we made in the Budget Act when it was enacted in late June and July. And so I put that's a big caveat, though, because if you look at California's revenue structure and where we get our tax revenue, it's disproportionately tied to personal income tax, capital gains revenue, right? If you wanted on a daily basis track just a trend on what's happening with California's state finances and general fund revenues, just watch the stock market. We have disproportionately tied our state revenues over time as voters to personal income and capital gains revenues through some ballot initiatives. And so it's actually even more so now than it was during the Great Recession via two ballot measures that Jerry Brown championed. And so the stock market's actually been trending fairly well despite the effects of the pandemic. And so what we're seeing is we think that's buttressing state revenues. And so we're trending, I think last I looked, about $5 billion in aggregate ahead of what was assumed in the Budget Act. Now, don't get too excited because we're still early in the fiscal year. If the stock market were to drop, the impact of that could easily exceed $5 billion by quite a large magnitude. I mean, remember when the recession hit years ago, we saw a $7 billion drop in the Prop 98 guarantee in 1 year, right? I mean, these kinds of roller coaster can drop suddenly and quickly. And so Department of Finance and legislative staff are basically banking these dollars. They're not going to be eager to spend them. I don't even think they're going to be eager to budget spending them in the January budget. They're going to have to realize them in some way, but they're very nervous about a potential drop in the stock market that could mean they need them to backfill some of those things. So, but we're off to a good start. If that trend were to hold, that would be very good news, obviously, through the end of the year. So that tied in with the Budget Act that we're living with right now had a whole bunch of triggers that were tied to the potential that the federal government would provide some added stimulus that states and local governments could benefit from. And so far that has not happened. And I would say that I think the likelihood of it happening before the election are dimmer by the day. Nancy Pelosi is signaling to Democrats in the House that she doesn't think that it's getting very difficult to imagine something happening. I think stimulus has to happen under either administration, whether Trump remains in office or Biden is the new president come January. I think it's just a matter of what that looks like. And the issues seem to be a lot of, whether or not we're going to bail out state and local governments and some of their impacts. So right now, the Budget Act says these federal revenues need to come in by October 15th. And one of the triggers, for example, would be to roll back some of the K-12 deferrals that everyone's managing. That looks like that date's not going to happen. I mean, here we are, it's the 6th, right? And so the 15th is that date. But we're watching it, and obviously a change in administration. We're going to talk about the ballot here and the election here in a minute. Christina's going to lead on that. But a change in that administration, I think it's probably not going to change whether stimulus happens or not. I think both are going to have to do it. It's just what that's going to entail. And I think, so far the Trump administration has been a little reluctant to help bail out states and local governments, and that's kind of what we need here. Biden, I think, will be more apt to do that, at least on that piece. At least he signaled that. So folks are watching the impacts of this pretty closely. And then kind of where we go from here in terms of the state budget process. So in November, in the middle of November, about November 15th, the Legislative Analyst's Office, the LAO, they're a nonpartisan arm of the legislature. They provide an analysis of what's going on in the economy, national and state, and then do a forecasting crystal ball of the state's revenue projections. And it's really our first healthy analysis from the state level of what might happen. And it usually is an indicator of where the governor might go in January when he releases his proposal. And it looks at Prop 98 and looks at school funding and all that. So mid-November, we're going to have an analysis from them, and we'll do some heavy reporting and analysis on that. Then by, everyone will go, be home for Christmas. Well, we're all going to be home, but we're going to have Christmas. And then by January 10th, we will see a proposal from Newsom on the budget for next year. And so if revenue trends hold and the LAO report's good, then maybe the January proposal might look a little better. We will, SSDA and Capital Advisors, we do our budget workshops every year. We're going to do them in January. They are going to be remote again. We're going to do them. We're also going to do a workshop after November 15th, but before December 1st. We're going to dig into the election outcome. We're going to dig into the LAO report, and we're going to dig into some policy trends that we see coming. So just to tee that up for everybody. So we're in a little bit of a holding pattern on the state's finances and budget, but that's kind of where we are. I don't know if we want to take questions on state budget now before we transition to election, but if anybody's got one, we can take it. Okay.
Yeah, and Barrett, just to add in, that was great table setting. I just want to plug the work that SSDA and Tim and the board did between that May revise and the Budget Act. Deferrals are obviously not optimal, but they're certainly better than outright cuts. And Tim was just really front and center pushing for that. So huge kudos to him and his advocacy on that really important issue. I don't think it's breaking news to anybody that there's an election coming up in about 27 days. It's kind of consumed all of the media. It's kind of also the undercurrent of all the talks on stimulus, as Barrett mentioned, but, just some facts and figures. We're about 27 days out. Ballots went out yesterday to every registered voter in California. Dems to about a 2-to-1 margin are registered about twice as often as Republicans in the state. No party preference is right behind Republicans. And I think interestingly, Republicans just kind of took a hold that no party preference designation. So polling has been pretty consistently in Biden's favor to whatever extent you believe the polls these days. We are seeing a little bit of a bump for Joe Biden after the debate performance. That doesn't necessarily take into account the recent news of President Trump's COVID diagnosis. But I think what we're seeing here is a lot of, especially in the Senate, a lot of races that incumbents probably neither hoped nor expected to be close are actually trending to be kind of close. We are seeing that in Iowa and in South Carolina, and importantly, the Senate race, as Barrett has mentioned, will be important for whatever the stimulus looks like, kind of the speed at which the stimulus is passed, and how quickly it can get out, and of course what it entails in terms of bailouts to state and or assistance to state and local governments will be important on the U.S. Senate races, in addition to the presidential race. Now, on the state legislative races, every assembly seat is up this year, and half of the state Senate is up. We do expect the Democrats to keep the supermajority in both houses. Important for a couple of reasons. They can pass 2/3 tax increases, and they can also do gubernatorial veto overrides. I don't expect that to be the case if the 2/3 majority is kept in both houses, but just, you know, something politically interesting to watch for. And then on the next slide, Barrett's going to get into Sacramento dynamics a little bit more, including something we might see in terms of leadership changes. Now, also on the ballot, I'm sure you guys have already seen advertisements on this. You've got about 12 ballot measures, a referendum in there. But what we're watching really closely is Prop 15, which is the split roll initiative that would be, you know, essentially the biggest reform to Prop 13 that was originally passed in 1978 that we have ever seen. So what this would do is begin to distinguish between commercial and industrial properties for purposes of property taxation and increase the frequency with which those properties can be assessed for property tax purposes. There are exemptions for farmlands and for small businesses, but especially given COVID, the opposition, which is deep-pocketed and aggressively fighting against this, has some pretty compelling fodder for why it's not the time to raise taxes right now. All told, if this does pass, and I think the most recent polling I saw has it just squeaking by with maybe like a 51% approval rating, it is expected to raise about between, you know, given the year, between $8.5 and $12 billion, 40% of which would go to schools, 60% of which would go to local governments. This initiative had kind of a tortured path to the ballot. A previous version qualified, but there were some drafting errors, had to pull it off, managed to get it on this ballot coming up. One of two initiatives dealing with property taxes on the ballot. The other one is a little bit more complicated, deals with how frequently seniors, disabled folks, and people impacted by disasters can transfer their property tax rate to a different home, and also closes what some are saying is an inheritance loophole. So not a lot of money coming to schools if that one passes. But like I said, we're watching Prop 15 very closely. Also wanted to point out, just really briefly, the repeal of AB 209 is also on the ballot, which would reinstate affirmative action. Obviously, discrimination, you know, based on gender, race is prohibited under the Constitution. If this were to pass, and it's not polling very well, about a third of likely voters say they support it. But if it were to pass, it would reinstate kind of positive marks for certain job applicants, bidding applicants, and within kind of the public post-secondary education system. So a lot on the ballot. I'm sure your mailboxes are being bombarded, both digitally and by paper. I think it's only going to ramp up. And of course, as any new polling comes out that we think might be interesting to you guys, we'll of course get it out to you. Barrett, anything you wanted to add on the election slide?
No, I just one thing on Prop 15 actually. So I mean, this idea has been tested for years, and it's never pulled well, right? The idea that you're going to change property taxes, because it's very easily, particularly just to sort of get seniors and folks that are fixed incomes to worry about the fact that the state might next come for their residential property tax, right? And so that's always been the liability. And a lot of the campaign people that I know here have always sort of worried about the likelihood that this gets on the ballot and then sort of ruins the ability to try and make changes to property tax laws. Although that said, I mean, Christina indicated the polling on it is now kind of better than it's ever been. I think if there's ever been a year where the voter turnout in the state might lend itself to a change like this, it could be this year, but I think it's going to be tight, particularly now given the pandemic and sort of the worry about the effects of it. But I think it's kind of a toss-up. You know, I think a lot of folks, particularly, you know, remember CSBA had an alternative proposal to raise revenue for schools that arguably would have been better, but it didn't in terms of how much of the revenue that was raised would have gone to schools. As Christina mentioned, you know, we're going to get a couple $2 billion here on top of Prop 98. But the other ones would have been a lot more than that. So there's some mixed feelings about this thing, but this is the thing I'm going to be watching the most in terms of local state issues on the ballot is Prop 15. So.
Yeah, I just want to chime in. I cannot thank both the Dolly, Assemblyman and Senator Gallagher and Nielsen for the work they've done really since the campfire and really the Oroville Dam. But most recently, they've really stepped up and helped other counties, especially Gallagher, deal with you know how legislators can help schools during the fire and all that. But they've just been outstanding to work with, and they are on the other side of the aisle from the Democrats, but they've been very helpful working together with them on issues. So up your way, it's been really nice to work with them. So if you see them, I know they visited Happy Valley, the staff there. So many kudos to them. They've really helped out our initiatives, and I think we'll be reaching out to them on this CAP ADA. We're gonna need their help on that one.
Yep. So looking ahead, Christina alluded to this earlier, that you know, I've been working in Sacramento for the better part of the last 20 years. And you know, one of our partners is Jack O'Connell. He was in the legislature for 20 years and was state superintendent. And sort of collectively in our firm, we've been talking about just what the dynamics are here in Sacramento. And none of us can remember a time when things have been so contentious. And I would say even amongst Democrats, you know, as Christina mentioned, Democrats in the legislature enjoy super majorities. And so, and I often call it Dem on Dem violence. And you can, you know, in some states you can see reap on reap violence, right? When you have one party that ends up dominating things, you end up, the fractures within the party become the fault lines that drive conflict. And so you add a pandemic on top of normal politics. And this year we just saw an unprecedented level of conflict, both between the parties and within the parties. And in fact, on the last night of session, some of you may have read in the paper, Buffy Wicks, who is an assembly member from the East Bay, ended up having to drive into Sacramento with her infant child to vote on a family leave bill because the speaker wasn't going to let her vote by proxy, despite the fact that the entire Republican caucus on the Senate side was voting remotely. And so it ended up driving some bitter feelings, particularly amongst sort of the Women's Caucus and some of the advocates for paid family leave and the speaker. And so the speaker, there just was a bad political development for the speaker. On top of that, the moderate caucus within the Democratic side fractured on over paid family leave and some of these things. And so that's important because the speaker essentially was elected speaker with help from the moderate caucus. And so it's like the politics couldn't have gone worse for him. I don't know that he's going to lose his speakership, but those are the kinds of, those are the kind of environments when you see leadership changes. Those are the kinds of things that drive them. But that would have huge implications. You know, the speaker decides who the chairs of committees are. He's been a big proponent of early learning and has prioritized that. Like it would have impacts on all kinds of things, not to mention the state budget and what the priorities are. So things are tense here in ways we've never seen. I mean, the demonstrations at the Capitol have been, you know,
Consistent.
Consistently unprecedented. I mean, they just are it's just an odd time, and it's affecting everything. I don't know if some of that will resolve post-election and by the time the legislators get sworn in December. But that has impacts on our ability to find folks to work with, and it just makes the environment here a little more tense. So,
and Barry, if I could jump in, you mentioned the protests. If you guys remember, and I think we can all agree that we would make some, playing Monday morning quarterback, we'd probably make some different decisions from the Newsom administration. He's in a very difficult spot. But if you remember, earlier on in the year, he reopened as a direct result to the pressure he was getting, the political pressure, which was, right outside the Capitol door. So I think Barrett makes a really good point that the way people engage with kind of their government and the political system right now it's changing. It's changing. And especially with Governor Newsom, it seems to be pretty effective.
Yeah. So there's multiple crises. I mean, we're still dealing with the pandemic. The reopening has not gone well in a lot of places, and they're gonna continue to struggle with that. We've got all these wildfire impacts that we're going to be wrestling with, and we have a history of wrestling with them from Sonoma and Butte and all these down south too. So we're going to be dealing with that on top of the pandemic, and then we've got budget uncertainty. So you've got all that baked in, but then, where are we now? I would say this is the hardest point. Usually at this time, you can crystal ball and you can fairly quickly put together what the issues are going to be going into next year. And right now, this is really difficult to forecast, but there are some that we know are going to be debated next year. And those are pretty easy to identify so far. That would be the digital divide. Legislators and social justice groups and folks are pretty cranky around learning loss disparities amongst different populations. And so I don't know what that's going to look like, but that is arguably going to be the number one policy issue that the legislature and the policymakers deal with going into next year is what do we do to mitigate the impacts on communities that were more disproportionately affected by learning loss. The idea that families that have resources and parents that can stay home and focus on their kids, those kids are generally going to fare better than, kids that come from families where you've got, parents that are, maybe it's a broken home, you got working multiple jobs. There's just not, you're trying to survive. And so the learning loss is going to be disparate. So that's going to be front and center outside of all the budget ones. The one that we thought might actually make it into some of the final actions, either in the budget or in the legislature, were, when the civil unrest issues popped up in the middle of last year after George Floyd's death. There was a lot of focus amongst legislators and policymakers in California around the role of police in society, but then for us, the role of police on campus. And there were a couple of bills that we were hearing rumors there might be language in the state budget. It ended up there wasn't, and in fact, there was a statement in the budget that said, essentially, we're going to deal with the role of police in schools next year. So that's from the administration.
On that point, we just learned that Speaker Rendon put together a select committee on police reform. So we're watching that closely. Assemblymember Gibson out of LA is the chair of that committee. I would expect that as that committee meets, some of their recommendations will be turned into legislation on this issue. So just wanted to point that out. It hasn't essentially stagnated during the legislative off season through, probably political pressure to get something done and a true desire to get something done. The Speaker of the Assembly did put something together on that.
Yeah, and so probably also it's good. And then it's probably also important to note they did pass some legislation police reforms, they banned certain like chokeholds and things like that from trainings and things. But specifically for us in the school world is, you know, what are we doing with police on campus? How are they used? That kind of thing. I mean, you're going to have some folks that just want to outright ban police from being in schools, and then you know, which I think is a bridge too far. But I think we're looking at some sort of reforms or clarifications with that next year. Mental health, obviously a huge issue. I don't know that we fully wrapped our heads around the impacts of the pandemic. I, you know, don't need to tell any of you the impacts of the wildfires. Those things they were actually boiling last year, and I think they'll continue to boil, if not boil over next year. I think the issue and the challenge has been resources, but then, you know, folks just really aren't sure where to start. Just what's kind of what it feels like to me. There's all kinds of things to do. But mental health resources, particularly for children and families that are affected by the pandemic and wildfires, seems to be a big one. Charter schools, we were supposed to have a big debate this last year around non-classroom based charter schools because there's a moratorium in place. That didn't happen. All the oxygen got sucked out of the room with the other crises, but that 2-year moratorium is going to run out. They either need to punt that out another year, or they're going to just let it sunset and not do anything. I don't think the Democratic staff in the legislature can let that happen. So I'm anticipating a policy discussion around the role of non-classroom based charter schools and maybe some reforms in that area. The Charter Schools Association seems willing to go there, which is why I think it's important to acknowledge that they've sort of cut off not their full advocacy, but they're clearly protecting brick and mortar charter schools. The non-classroom based space, I think even CCSA has identified as an area where they're willing to make reforms. And they're, you know, next to CTA, Teachers Association, they're the second most powerful, if not the most powerful, they're sort of edging each other out sometimes, group on the education side. So I expect that. And then an issue that popped up in the budget last year wasn't resolved, but we know is going to come back, are adults enrolled in charter schools. If you look around the state, we've got some adults that are, you know, in essentially adult programs. They're not hiding them, but they're getting classified as like first and second graders. Some of them are going to certificated programs like for truck driving schools and things like that. Some of the staff and the members in the legislature have taken issue with this. They don't like it. A lot of it's driven by the fact that they just don't want adults eating up what they see as K-12 money, that these are dollars under Prop 98 that should go to the education of children. And if you want to educate adults, we should do that in the adult ed system. You know, CTA is driving a lot of this. I think it's a sort of a member protection issue. But we spend about $100 million within Prop 98 every year on these adults that are in charter schools. And so they're trying to find a way to do it. So there's going to be some reform here. The administration, just to give you an idea, proposed capping the age of enrollment for charter schools at age 27 last year. So I think that's going to be where they start. They ran into some problems with some very specific schools, some schools that teach and educate incarcerated adults, some that educate farm workers, adult farm workers all across the state. And, you know, these are vulnerable populations that a bunch of folks in the legislature said, well, wait, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So we expect that one to come back. And then finally, wildfires, we've mentioned a couple of times here. That will be both in terms of impacts and to schools, but I would just broadly, we've been putting more and more money away in every budget to mitigate, you know, to buy more airplanes, to hire firefighters, and it's still not enough. So I think they're gonna need to do more. They're going to need to work with the federal government on that as well, in terms of how we're going to do forest management and a lot of other things. So, you know, that's going to be expensive, but that's something that they're going to have to deal with in one way or another. So, those seem to be the easy, identifiable issues we know are going to pop up next year. There will be others, and there will be more. It's just hard to crystal ball sort of right now in where we are in the timeline. You know, we don't know the outcome of the election, all that kind of stuff. So, so the next slide, I think we wanted to just sort of open it up for questions. And Christina, I didn't know if you have any other things you wanted to say, but interested in feedback and questions at this point.
Yep. I think we were supposed to be done 5 minutes ago. So Tim, we want to be respectful of your agenda, but if folks have.
Yeah, one question I have for you guys is, let me make sure my thing's up enough. When is the Capitol closing? Will it have a further impact on how they're doing this ledge process? It just seems like it's all going to flow together.
Yeah, it's been a shit show, to use the term. Turns out legislating does not work well remotely. I mean, we as lobbyists were trying to call into committees to testify, and it might as well have been a Saturday Night Live skit. I mean, it's am I muted? Am I on? And legislators just, it became really difficult to effectively take public input in a process that's supposed to have a lot of public input. And, you know, trying to get staff, you can't meet with anybody. So, I mean, if it weren't for the fact that we had cell phones for a lot of our counterparts in the governor's office and in the legislature, you're trying to get somebody on the phone, you know, their email boxes were flooded. They had too many letters to possibly read. That legislative process has not gone well, and they're very worried about going into next year. I mean, my opinion is they need to limit the number of bills that they introduce. There's no way they can manage the volume of bills and ideas that they've normally operated under if you're going to close the Capitol to normal business, and which is clearly going to be the case for at least the first half of next year, if not longer. So yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. I don't know that they fully have worked it out. They need to do some things, because what we were doing wasn't working well.
Yeah, and if you remember, at one point Barrett referenced the phone systems they were using to take public comment during the hearings they actually had. At one point, I think the Assembly actually said, we can't do this. This is too draining. It's too burdensome. And the backlash on that was astounding. So it's a balancing act, right? Between, you know, making sure the business in the people's house is open and accessible to the people, and making sure you're not spending 5.5 hours on essentially 2 bills because of all the technical glitches. So I agree with Barrett. I'm not sure anyone has a totally clear vision of how they are going to rectify the issues of the already truncated last legislative year.
Yeah, I just want Mike Freeman has a good question. I think this gives us a little snapshot of what we're dealing with in Sacramento. Barrett, it's about AB 1384 and addressing protection from liability, you know, and how we hit a wall on that because of all the labor, not just CTA. You want to explain what happened, and is there any possibility that they will protect the schools?
So yeah, it's just kind of why it died. I mean, we detected it early on between the consumer attorneys and labor. It just didn't go anywhere. And, you know, labor didn't outright oppose it, but I mean, look at labor's behavior around the state. They were not eager to reopen. So they were not going to help us champion legislation that essentially limited the liability to schools for reopening that they didn't want to have happen, right? And so combine that with the fact that the chair in the Senate, on the Senate side, Senator Hannah Beth Jackson, chair of the Judiciary Committee, just refused to even set the bill, I think as a result of the position from the consumer attorneys and from labor. And we just could not get traction. We had meetings with the administration. We had meetings with everyone. The administration basically said, look, if you can get it out of the legislature, then we'll talk about it. And I think they knew that we weren't going to get it out of the legislature. It effectively allowed them to not have the conversation. So then all of the strategy shifted to the federal level, because the federal government could do this in stimulus. It actually became an ask of Republicans at the congressional level, and so we were championing that. But now it's all been locked up in the stalemate between you know, the U.S. House and Nancy Pelosi and the administration over whether we're going to have a stimulus bill at all. And so it's just kind of stalled out. I don't think we're going to see anything in terms of liability, certainly not from the state legislature, until next year. It could happen in federal stimulus. And, you know, you got a bunch of advocacy groups trying to push on that at the federal level, but, you know, the legislature shut down right now, so we're not going to see that. And, you know, I don't know that dynamic changes after January much. I mean, my money would be on getting some liability protections at the federal level that would affect multiple states would probably be the best way to go. And we were really clear. We wanted liability protection, not for, you know, gross neglect and other things. It was just sort of natural things that might occur under a COVID environment with staff getting sick and kids. And I didn't think what anyone was asking for was unreasonable, but it just politics. So
right.
I don't know.
Well, listen, you guys, thanks so much for everything. If I get some more questions throughout the morning, I'll text you guys and you get back to me. And thanks for all the hard work you're doing. I know it's been a confusing time, and appreciate your hard work on behalf of Smalls.
You got it. Good to see you guys.
We're going to switch. Corey's going to switch us over. I do want to do first an announcement, and this is why I love working in small school districts. You guys, check this out. So Sundell is in Tulare County, and at their school they have a science center. Terry Rufford's got one of the best schools in the state, in my opinion, if not the nation. She's got a trading post where they sell barbecue sauce, hot sauce. I bought some boots for my little grandson. They got clothes. But only in a small district can they actually sell teacups that say whiskey, tequila, vodka on your coffee cup. So when you're doing that, and then I had to buy this, and I told her only in a small district can they have a sign in a school trading post run by kids. And the community comes in, they make a great deal of money. Kids make coffee and do their thing, but they're not shy to be too PC. They've got some really funny stuff in there. They said people won't buy school type stuff. So kudos to our smalls for being creative and entrepreneurial. And Corey, I think we're going to break up. Our associates are going to take you into a breakout room. And you have my word, our associates have learned to be very succinct, to the point, and tell you what they got going on to help your schools and better your schools. So Corey, I'm going to give the microphone over to you.
That's fine. We'll actually keep talking because I'm in the middle of putting everybody into their breakout rooms.
Okay,
so it's going to be a minute.
In the chat room, I need you guys to help me. My wife reminded me to put out the garbage. And you know when you hear that garbage truck coming down, and I missed it by about 30 seconds. So if you have anything to give her excuse, I think I was going to blame you guys, but the garbage man comes at 7, and I got out there at 7:01. Totally forgot. So if you have any therapy for me, let me know. Does anybody else have any comments or want to say anything? Flowers don't work after 33 years of marriage.
Well, Tim, I just want to say thank you, at least from Siskiyou County anyway, for everything that you guys are doing for our small districts up here.
Sure.
It's been a, you know, as everybody knows, it's been a interesting ride the last 6 months, and we're not sure where it's going to go from here, but we definitely need, you know, a voice now more than ever for our small districts.
It's been really hard, Kermit, and to all you guys. It's been very frustrating trying to figure out the leadership at CDE and what they're doing. I know it's always been a challenge, you guys, and, you know, but I think it's very hierarchical right now, and that's been very hard. There's, you know, I want you guys to know there's some really good people that work at CD that work very hard, and they're locked in. So that's been probably my most frustrating thing. I'm hoping this new rural division that they created there is a little more open to help you guys out, led by Kimberly Bourne and her staff. They're just trying to get their feet wet, but it seems like that's been my biggest challenge, to tell you the truth. And I'm sure you're feeling that too. I do want to say I'm looking forward to working with the new CSES of the county executive directors, Karen Staff Walters. I think she'll bring a lot to the table to support our work, your work, and big change there. And I'm having lunch with her Thursday to talk about how we can all work together. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. Oh, just want to let you know we are ready.
Okay, click the button.
So the way this is going to work is we have 10 exhibitors with us today. So everybody's going to be randomly placed into breakout rooms for 10 minutes. Then you'll all come back to the main room, and then you're going to go out again for another 10 minutes with a different associate. And then we're going to repeat it for a third time for our 30 minutes. So I'm opening up all the rooms right now, and enjoy yourselves.
We're on a couple career tech task force, and It was kind of his first journey working on a statewide California issue, and really enjoyed his leadership there and pulling all the different partners throughout the state. And Pradeep, remember that was pre-COVID. We actually got to be together and work together on a very important issue, which is career tech ed. I wanted everyone to know that one of the things I wanted to announce was SSDA is working with, Siskiyou County and specifically, but Marie Caldwell's work more broadly. And we're working with her to help bring, if you watch what they're doing with economic development and workforce development, the governor's choosing various regions about every 6 months to a year. Fresno was first, and they use the Imperial, and I think they're going to focus in on Lake Tahoe next. And I think Siskiyou's going to be the first rural community where the work that Marie's doing is going to bring some specialized funding from the state, but also get you guys prepared and focused. You're going to see a lot of federal workforce development money come in to help your academies, post-high school, and your families obtain funding. So the work Marie's doing is super important to me. I think I'm glad that she's working directly in California Forward, and that's the group that really drives a lot of major initiatives in California. And having a North State, I say concept will be great. I think you're going to see some really exciting stuff. We're hoping to we were going to have a visit this week from them, but recent fires locked the state down even more. But I'm hoping in 3 weeks we come back up there and bring some people. So with that being said, Pradeep, I think the work that you're doing to help support our high schools and middle schools and even elementary, we're anxious to hear what you got going on. Thanks for joining us this morning, and looking forward to what you got to say.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Pradeep Kotamaraju. I'm the Division Director for, I'm the Division Director for the Career and College Transition Division of the California Department of Education. I will present to you just information that my division, all of the different programs they're involved in. I'll try to get through this slide presentation quickly so that time for questions, and I'll raise at the end a couple of issues that have come up for us within the division and what we're trying to tackle, as Tim talked about. I also represent the superintendent on the state workforce board. So through that, I have a connection through to what's going on in the workforce development space. So without further ado, I will continue. I will very quickly go through what what's called a CCTD division, CCTD does, and then we can open it up for questions. So if you look at the program offices that we have within the CCTD, we are essentially within our division, we have roughly about 75 people, including 9 managers, that is a division director, and 8 managers. 5 of them are program managers, and 3 of them are fiscal.
Still blazing through.
Yeah, and so so what you have, what I'm going to talk about directly is only directly related to CT, but the italics one I am trying to, we know from adult ed, we connect, because we are responsible for Title II, we connect CT to that, but I'm also trying to connect that to other offices. We have education opportunities in our office, and I'll talk more about that towards the end. So Chuck Parker, our education administrator for the Ag Education, Family and Consumer Science Office. They are essentially run the Ag programs and the FFA programs. And as you know, Ag is a pretty tightly knit community, and the major program that they run is the Ag Incentive Grant. It's roughly about a $5 million grant, and they use that to build ag education programs. Ag uses the three circle concept of and that's what you see in this Ag Incentive Grant. I mean, this funding has been going on for some time, and essentially they have made efforts at collecting data and trying to evaluate the program. I won't be reading all the slides. I think all of you can see that these slides are available, and Christina and Corey can send it out to the group. You can see some of the requirements for the grant. The funds cannot be used for salary or salary-related items, we split the funds going out in September and October, and then the final cut goes out in March and April. It's a 3-year cycle in terms of the program review. Ag and this is not just California. I've been very impressed with how Ag Education manages their program and connects it to FFA and connects their teachers into the work that they do. It's a pretty tight-knit effort, and one of the things that I'm impressed about Ag is really experiential learning that they provide their students, particularly in the summer and through the shows that they have over the summer and the year. So the application deadlines, you can see this up there, and we asked, like for all our grants, we asked for reporting expenditures. The next set of grants, and this is probably the grant that a lot of people are familiar with, is the CT Incentive Grant, what's called CTIG. Michelle McIntosh is the education administrator in the CT Leadership Office. And this is taken directly from code. The focus is high quality career and technical programs from grades 7 to 12. And a little later on, I'll talk about the companion program, which is the K-12 Strong Workforce Program, that essentially covers the same grade level, 7 to 12. It's $150 million annually. You have and I think those of you who have worked with or in the arena know exactly how the application works. You can apply as a single LEA or consortia, and what you see out there is the remaining bullets is essentially what's in the legislation itself. The ADA categories, I mean, and then they break it up between, I think it's 8% for the smallest, and 12% for the middle, and then 88. So sorry, 4% for the smallest, 8% for the middle, and 88% for the largest. I have to, having looked at some of this data, I think one of the things that one might have to look at, and this may be down the road, is essentially whether this breakdown in the ADA categories are the right ones, because it may, when this legislation was originally looked at, they were not looking at LEAs per se, but maybe a high school size, and that has a difference. And because they are larger, the larger size provides you more economies of scale and scope. And then there are positive considerations that we take when we score the application, and then the matching funds requirement, which is 2:1. We are actually going through the 2021 application cycle right now. It's being scored. Applications came in a couple of weeks ago, and we're scoring those as we speak, and hopefully at the next state board, we will be presenting information about who gets, which LEA will be getting funded and how much. The new thing that we're doing within CTIG, and this is in collaboration with the K-12 Strong Workforce Grant and at the Chancellor's Office, is looking at collecting all of this data in CalPADS. This is before I came to California. I've been in California about 15 months. CTE data was always collected by itself. It wasn't connected to any of the larger data systems within CDE, and that in some ways made it self-contained and easier for us to report, but it didn't allow us to connect to the broader scope of what might be happening, not only within CDE, but also outside of CDE in both the higher education space as well as the workforce development space. So we've made extensive efforts over the last year in terms of trying to collect CTE data. So while we're using the CTIG K-12 Strong Workforce as a vehicle, we're actually trying to collect CTE data and trying to sort of relate that and looking at how getting information on students and courses and programs, and then trying to get some success metrics related to that. The CTIG and K-12 Strong Workforce legislation has metrics in them that we have to collect data on for both legislative as well as policy purposes, and we have come up with a way of trying to operationalize that using data that is collected within CalPADS, and then having that reported on accounting purposes for both accountability purposes, but also for analytics as well. The K-12 Strong Workforce is also a $150 million program that is administered by the California Community College Chancellor's Office. But the LEA, it is targeted to the LEAs and students at the grades 7 to 12. And what we're trying to do is essentially, when I talked earlier about the metrics, is to try to come up with metrics that essentially describe those students, whether they're funded by each of the programs. And so please keep this in mind. That's why we're trying to collect CTE data based that is student-centered rather than program-centered. We cannot actually in our data system right now make this a statement that a student X improves in certain metric because they're impacted by a certain program. What we can say is that an LEA receives funding from a variety of sources, and that may have some contributing a factor to have the student improve, let's say, their high school graduation rate. So again, it's $150 million programs. They have a different structure in terms of how they distribute those funds and the length of time of those projects, which is a little different to CTIG. So while the legislation is pretty similar in terms of CTIG and K-12 Strong Workforce, how it is operationalized on each side varies in terms of, not only in terms of scoring the applications, but how those funds are distribution and how some of the evaluation might be done in terms of the two programs. But there's definitely these two programs work hand in hand, and essentially we have a lot of Michelle McIntosh and Sandra Sanchez at the California Community College Chancellor's Office have a lot of conversations about the programmatic relationships between the two funding sources. So here is the purpose of the K-12 Strong Workforce, and it's basically, there is, and although CTIG implies the workforce development connection, in the K-12 strong workforce, the connection to workforce development efforts is stronger, partly because they have the companion program, which is focused only at the community colleges, which is a strong workforce program. Again, there are technical assistance provided that is through the K-12 Strong Workforce Program, but it is both for CTIC and K-12 Strong Workforce through those 8 regional technical centers and the 72 pathway coordinates. As I understand that, maybe maybe a couple of exceptions, but they have filled all these positions and have been helping LEAs for both of these these grants. When they're not only in terms of helping them in the application process, but also providing technical assistance when they're actually implementing the grant if the LEA is awarded the funds. The one federal program that that the CCTD works with is the Carl Perkins grant, what's called Perkins 5, and basically that grant is my background is I've been working in the Carl Perkins arena, first as an accountability specialist, and then as a program administrator, and then working as a state director in 3 states. So California is my 3rd state, and so I know a lot about Perkins. I can speak a lot about that, but I'll be very brief about that. And Brian Baker, who's the education programs consultant, leads our effort on Perkins and works in Michelle's office in the CTE leadership office. So we are in our 5th iteration. The first Perkins 1 was established in 1983, and that improve, enhance, and expand high quality CTE programs has not changed. I think it's become my read of the legislation from Perkins 1 to Perkins 5 is it has moved away from being what I would call a set-aside program, which was what Perkins 1 and maybe Perkins 2 was about, to now what I would call a more cohesive or comprehensive program improvement focus that they have in Perkins 5. And I'll talk about that in a moment. It's essentially formula-based. We have in California. The one thing about, I should say, in the Perkins program is that it is actually a program that works at the high school, has worked at the high school level and at the community college level. This time around in Perkins 5, funds can go down to the middle school level as well. In California, at the secondary level, we have both the ROPs as well as secondary adult ed involved in that, but the focus is a high quality CTE pathway and some of our adult ed programs through Perkins 5. We're trying to have conversations to, rather than looking at single type of courses in terms of CTE, to create within the adult ed space a high quality CTE pathway. You can see a link there about the bird's eye view about Perkins requirements in there, which to give you a very brief what's different this time around. Perkins doesn't change that much. The good thing about Perkins is that it's has been stable, particularly since Perkins 3. The new things that are in Perkins 5 is the introduction of what is called a comprehensive local needs assessment, and that connects a lot of the areas that need to be connected. For example, workforce development, post-secondary education, some community-based organizations, those that are focusing on on special populations. And so the comprehensive local needs assessment is a review of what is happening within the state. Tim just talked about earlier about the effort that the California Forward is doing, first now in Fresno and may now move to the north area. And I think both that the comprehensive local needs assessment and what the work that LEAs are doing in that could be a good source for those for when that program gets initiated in the north. Here are the other resources in Perkins 4. The thing I want to talk about before we leave this is in Perkins 4, I should just talk about is that the federal government has done a pretty good job in trying to connect this Perkins funding to other types of federal sources like ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, and the Workforce Development, WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. And so they're trying to streamline and normalize and make common across those three federal grants. And it has helped the local recipients, both at the community college and at the LEA level, to work through that. So going through very quickly, we have the California Partnership Academies, which is a long-standing program that is the CDE has run. It was first started in 1983, and it's out of the High School Innovations and Initiative Office. Pete Callis is the administrator for that. I think those of you who worked in the California Partnership Academy space should know, should have a sense of what that is. It is linked to different industry pathways. And as you see, approximately 30 million have been invested in that. If someone asks me, what is the CPA? My simple answer would be, it's a school within a school. So that's really the approach that the CPA takes. The new thing that has come about is essentially this middle school program that is there, that's been there for a couple of years. And so that we're starting to build that out, and we provided some grants at the middle school level, as you see from the slide in front of you. The other thing we should remember, the California, the CPA, is essentially that there is a lot of connection to post-secondary education or experiential learning, like work-based learning or project-based learning, and it connects. As I said, it's a school within a school. So not only does it stress CTE, but it also has a focus and connects the academics that are required to make students college and career ready. Other programs that are related to CTE is, as I said before, adult education. We also have within the CCTD is what's called the Educational Opportunities Office. J.Z. Ragland is the administrator for that. And the reason I put this there is this is the office that, for a lack of a better word, what I would call them as high school students particularly, but it can go down to the middle school and maybe even the elementary school, that what I would call second chances, that essentially have had problem with the traditional way of K-12 education, and they run programs or are responsible for programs and provide technical assistance on programs that are for those students that are having difficulty in college, and provide them different opportunities like independent study. And I'm talking about pre-COVID, because now there's a lot of confusion between distance learning, independent studies, virtual school. So all of that has to be sorted out, regardless of whether we, in terms of the new world that we're going to be living in. going forward. But the educational opportunity is one area that I think connecting to the workforce development space is really in terms of getting those students ready for workforce, because many of them we'd like all of them to go to have some post-high school experience, but my intent as I've taken over this division is trying to have some of these second chance students to have some what I would call workforce ready skills. So when they leave high school, whenever they do, and even if they do not leave with a high school diploma, at least they will have some workforce ready skills to take with them when they go into the future, or look for future prospects for themselves. The other one is Every Student Succeeds Act that is related to. There is a section in the ESSA that talks about a well-rounded education, and within that well-rounded education, CTE is called out. The one area where CTE gets connected quite a bit is special education, and we have in the Perkins 5 plan that was passed, approved and passed by the U.S. Department of Education. We spent a lot of time on special education and talked about the workability programs within that, and we're starting to have even more conversation with special education. So with that, I'll stop here. And if there are any questions that either maybe in the chat, I think, or maybe it can go
Corey,
back. Should I stop?
Corey, you see any questions in the chat? I don't see any.
No, I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but I mean, we're a small enough group. If you want to take yourself off mute, if you have any questions for Pradeep. And I think Christina might still be on as well. Christina Marcellus from Capital Advisors Group. So she can also answer any questions that maybe Pradeep can, or Tim is here as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or take yourself off mute.
Yeah, Pradeep, the only question I would have, I know there's a new rural education division led by Kim Bourne, and want to know, has their staff and your staff worked on, because they're kind of combing all over the state, and I think it'd be a good idea to make sure they're informed about career tech ed. I think Kim Bourne, I think, actually was a former teacher and had a career tech background. But I like the fact you're having that division put together, and look forward to them working up here in the North State. Are they pretty well trained in CDE or CTE stuff? Do you know?
I am not. I can check with Chuck Parker in terms of whether, obviously it's connected to the ag field, and I'll check with that and see whether he may have made that connection. I will check with him, because I know that we've sent out a couple of grants that have come out, announcements of grants that have come out from the federal government that target really rural and small school districts, and we sent that out a couple of months ago. I don't know if anyone took advantage of that or not, but it was actually LEAs had to, or even small community colleges could apply for that.
Yeah, great. Okay, does anybody else have a question? Christina, anybody?
Yeah, Pradeep, I wanted to just follow up on something that you mentioned. So you mentioned that workforce advisory committee that you and the chancellor's office staff, and I was listening to the last discussion that you had just a couple weeks ago on possible revision to metrics, and it seemed like there was some really interesting conversation on what the proper scope of kind of taking that data was. Member Patricia Rucker, also member of the state board, said we can't get, I'm paraphrasing here, but she essentially said we can't get too macro, too broad in our data collection, because that might rule out some LEAs that just offer one CTE course, 2 CTE courses. So keeping the data collection at maybe like the capstone or the full pathway level might not give the full breadth of classes and programs that are actually being offered to students. Is that takeaway accurate? Is that fair? Was that your analysis of the meeting too? I know you were a chief presenter of that item. And if that's a fair kind of summary, where do you think the next iteration of that discussion goes when you guys bring the item back next time?
It's partially fair, I'd say
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Because I think what we were trying to indicate, because, you know, I think her point was we were going beyond the legislation, but my understanding of CTIC and K-12 strong workforce is to promote high quality CTE. And in order to promote high quality CTE, you have to focus on the pathway and not necessarily have a student. What happens if you have a student that takes one CTE course in the 9th grade and doesn't take a CTE course after that? What does that really tell us in some sense? From a data perspective, I don't think what she was suggesting was a hard thing to do. What we were trying to address is what was in the legislation. If you look at the legislation, there's a whole list of metrics they put there that really needed to be operationalized. And that was the intent, and then have alignment between, since the K-12 strong workforce and CTIG target the same set of students, we need to collect the same set of data. It doesn't mean that we can't collect other data that relates to that.
Right.
It's just that we were trying to sort of look at, when we were told by that committee, look for alignment. And that was the focus. And I will confess to you that that came out of left field. I did not anticipate that.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, where are we going? We may want to take a phased approach to take our points into that and see what we can do through a phased approach, rather than what maybe it was very overwhelming for them when we dumped all of that on them, and maybe we have to take it in chunks.
Understood. Thank you very much. That was a very helpful way to round out my kind of incomplete assessment of that conversation. So thank you very much, Pradeep.
Great, and thank you so much, Pradeep. We're appreciative you getting on board here and spending some time with us. And on behalf of everybody from the North State, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm heading out to get my flu shot. So that's an adventure now.
It is.
So, yeah.
Go with the ones where you can stick your arm out the window. That's the best.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, Corey, our next one is small.
So now we're going to move it. Yeah, we're going to move everybody randomly into breakout rooms. So this will be a one-shot kind of deal. You'll have about 30 minutes to talk about what's been working in your classroom. So whether you've been distance learning, hybrid learning, or in-person learning, we want you to share your successes and failures, bring any questions you have. Just really, just network and talk about some of the things that have been working and maybe some things that you're thinking of doing, just any ideas you have.
Corey, along those lines, everyone, this is also a good time to say, here's what we need from SSDA to help us within the classroom. Like I told you, Placerville has 5 letters. When they get their positive case, they have 5 scenarios when a COVID case hits. We've got some other stuff. So any other things you need at your fingertips, very important you get it back to us. And I'll be joining some of the groups. So looking forward to the next 25, 30 minutes.
Right. And our associates are welcome. I'll be putting you guys into the groups. If you need to leave, that's totally fine. But here we go.
We're at 35 people now. I expect we'll have about 50 or 60 EAs join in, and they'll hear about best practices from other EAs, and we get to gossip about you guys. That's the reason why we really have it. But no, it's really, it's going to be well attended, and it's a really good time for them. We spoil them with some raffles and all that good stuff. And Corey, the other one was is the negotiation ones full?
No, you can still join the negotiations training for this year. The first session was held a couple of weeks ago, but we recorded it. So if you want to join, in fact, I just had somebody from here join earlier today. And we can give you a discounted rate on that. And we can also send you the PowerPoint and the recording from the last session, so you can bring you up to speed. And the next session isn't until December.
Yeah, and what's really good about that, you guys, is you meet other teams trying to do what you're doing, and then you could meet other superintendents stuck where you're stuck. So that's been really well received. It's very informative as you're dealing with the next level. And then in closing, I just want to say, you know, I'm not supposed to have a favorite region, but Corey knows that you guys are my favorite region. And I don't say that to the other ones. So really, really miss seeing all you guys face to face and get some Kermit barbecue. I am planning to come up there in about 2 or 3 weeks to work with Marie and head over to Happy Valley and check in on things. So hopefully I run into you. If not, thanks for everything. And Kermit, thanks for always having a great attendance up there. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim, for everything.
All right, you guys, have a good day.
All right, thank you, guys. Good to see
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.